A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh bringing you another Plaguelands Media book review today, so cheers. Now, those of you that follow the channel know that I have been reading a lot of the early Dungeons and Dragons novels, a lot of the older stuff, some stuff that I read in the past, some stuff that I didn't read in the past. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the third book in the Empire's trilogy. That is Crusade by James Lowder, another fantastic cover there. Once again, this was a book that was recommended to me by my brother that I never got around to reading. And those of you that don't know what the Empire's trilogy actually is, please go back and watch the Horse Lords review and the Dragon Wall review. Basically put, this is the Forgotten Realms Dungeons and Dragons version of the Mongol invasion. The first book focused on the Tweegan hordes, the Mongols, so to speak. And the main character, Koja, is really the character that we follow and we get his point of view on what is happening. In Dragon Wall, the Tweegan hordes bust through the Dragon Wall between their land and Shaolong, which is supposedly China. The Dragon Wall, of course, being the Great Wall of China. And then we get the perspective of the Shaolong as they are trying to fight off these invaders. The main character, of course, in that book being Batu. In Crusade, we are now at the point where the Tweegan hordes have basically invaded what we know as the Forgotten Realms, and King Azaun of Cormyr, the King of Cormyr, you can see him right there, has decided to head up a crusade that will basically push back these Tweegan invaders that are coming in. And to do that, he needs to get armies from all of the lands that we know and love if we've played D&D and we are familiar with Faerun and the Forgotten Realms, and they all kind of come together in this giant crusade to push back this horde that has broken through and threatens Faerun as it is. Now, did I enjoy this book, knowing that this is the third book in a trilogy, and it is a trilogy where each book is written by a different author? Did I enjoy Crusade? Yeah, this book was amazing, but only because now this might seem like I am dissuading a lot of you from reading this. I'm not. It is a fantastic novel, but if you are familiar with these characters, King Azaun IV, for example, if you're familiar with the gods, Timora, Umberlee, all of these Torm, Tempest, all of these different gods that are worshipped across Faerun, it's all of these little things that make it great for fans of the older Dungeons and Dragons world, the older Dungeons and Dragons series. Now, that is not to say that the series isn't good. It is absolutely fantastic. The fact that we are getting the story of an invading horde from the point of view of the invading horde, the point of view of the first land they try to invade, and then the point of view of the second land they try to invade, is absolutely fantastic. The fact that we get recurring characters, absolutely fantastic. It is a phenomenal book, and it is a book that has made me go and look at the Kara-Tur and the Utter East Oriental Adventures first edition and second edition stuff with Dungeons and Dragons, which is something that back in the day I didn't have an interest in. But now it's it's pretty cool. I will admit that. This is a lot like the Mastika trilogy in that I had no interest in it back in the day, but I'm so glad that I have read it now because it was really fun, really fantastic. And Crusade actually is quite nail-biting towards the end. Knowing what I know about the history of this Dungeons and Dragons setting, Faerun, and what has come afterwards, I kind of knew what was going to happen. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. And that was the really cool part of this whole thing. So, with that said, if you don't want this spoiled, then go and move to another video. They are all freaking good. But if you want to join me on the final Crusade, gee, see what I did there? I made a joke. I'm fucking hilarious. Then stick around for the next episode of
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
So for those of you that have either read this series or watched Horse Lords and Dragon Wall, my other two reviews in the Empires trilogy, you will know that at the end of Dragon Wall, the Tweegan realizing, Yamun Kahan realizing that the assassination attempt wasn't perpetrated by the Emperor of Shaolong, called off his attacks, declared that whatever land he had conquered was his, and he has moved on to go and conquer the Forgotten Realms as we traditionally know it. And to do that, he has to fight through a horde of gnolls. He gets some help from the Red Wizards of Thay, and he ends up pushing his army into Rashomon. Rashomon, very interesting country. At this point, I would put a map down, but I just looked at the map before I started recording this video, and the explanation of where everyone is going and where they are would just take way too fucking long, so I'm just not going to bother with it. So go online, you can find the maps. Rashomon is basically a country of barbarians that is somewhat matriarchal, ruled by witches. I believe the symbol is spelled Simbul. One of the seven sisters is the ruler of Rashomon. So they push through there, and at this point, word has come to King Azaun IV of Cormyr. He decides that this horde needs to be stopped, and the only way to do it is to unite everyone, to get all of these armies to kind of conglomerate, because the Tweegan horde is about 150,000 horse-riding barbarian warriors. So he calls together a group of people. There is an emissary from the Dale Lands. There's an emissary from Sembia, Hillsfar, all of these different places. If you don't know the Forgotten Realms and you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. Just picture it like all of these different commanders come together, and King Azaun IV kind of makes his case. He also has to plead his case to the people. And when this happens, there is an assassination attempt on his life. It is stopped thanks to the court wizard Vengedahast, known as Vengi in the novel. He is one of the main characters. So we have King Azaun IV. We have his court wizard Vengedahast. We have Tom the Bard. We have generals. We have Foul Bloodaxe. We have Elventree. We have Harcourt, who is the leader. Elventree is the leader of the archers from the Dalelands. Harcourt is the leader of the cavalry. And I believe his name is Torg, who is a dwarf who has put forth about 2,000 dwarven warriors from this dwarven city of Eastholm to help in this crusade. So a lot of the beginning of the book is political, him trying to get these armies together, and like the Dalelands will not commit unless Zentel Keep commits. Zentel Keep, of course, being this force of evil. The Dalelands are worried that if Zentel Keep doesn't commit, if they send their army, then Zentel Keep will attack them. So the emissary from Zentel Keep comes and gives all these provisions to King Azoun, like leave Darkhold alone. That's our stronghold that raids caravans and shit. Leave it alone for a year and we'll commit. Which ultimately ends up happening, and they end up committing, I believe it's 2,000 warriors under the command of Vrak, which are orcs. Now, orcs are, in Dungeons & Dragons, considered evil. However, that has changed quite a lot since Crusade was written, in as much as the R.A. Salvatore novels had King Obold, an orc king, kind of build his own empire or his own kind of country under the treaty with Bruno Battlehammer. But that's a whole different thing, and that's a story that I will read down the line and talk to you all about. Just know that this army now has orcs and dwarves in it, and they are not joined in any way, shape, or form. They're just a mishmash of fucking soldiers that have come together. But after the assassination attempt, Azoun gets his army and they go on the march. Now, there are smaller characters in here that get a little bit of focus from time to time. There's Razor John, who is a Fletcher, someone who basically makes arrows. There's Mal, there's Kiri. They are all friends that kind of come together, and they have a little kind of side story happening at the same time where Mal ends up killing another soldier and is hanged for it, and Razor John and Kiri fall in love over the course of the thing. They both survive and they end up getting married at the end of the novel. So I'm not really going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the main story here, because the main story is pretty fucking awesome. So Azoun has his army together, and then they have to march. So in order to get to where the Tweegan have gone through Rashomon, and they are in Thesk. So it's basically across the other side of the world. So they have to, or the other side of Faerun. So they have to march the army. Then they have to sail across the inner sea, the Sea of Fallen Stars, to get to Telflam. And I'm butchering these names, I apologize. Where they are going to unite with the dwarves from Eastholm and the orcs from Zentel Keep. Wait. No, the orcs from Zentel Keep get on the boats. They have to march around. Okay, yeah, there's a whole thing. Anyway. They've got to basically meet on the other side of this. It's a giant lake, but they call it the Sea of Fallen Stars because that's how big it is. So the dwarves are kind of marching, and while they're marching, they come to this forest where they are greeted by centaurs, and these dwarves from Earthholm are really xenophobic, but they are marching with a young lady. Now, this lady happens to be Princess Elisir, Lord Azoun's estranged daughter. 4 years ago, she fled, and she fled the courtly life and became an adventurer, a sellsword. When the... Okay, I'm mixing up things here. Let me just kind of rewind a little bit. They're sailing across the Sea of Fallen Stars, and there's a storm, and the waves are going to smash the ships and everything like that. And the captain realizes we didn't give tribute to Umberlee. Umberlee is the goddess of the sea. So they start throwing gold overboard and whatever. And the court bard, who is now the court historian, Tom, realizes I've got to get rid of the thing that I treasure the most, and he throws his writing tools and everything he's written about the history of this crusade overboard, and Umberlee calms down, and they get across safely. Okay, now that they're across safely, Azoun goes off to meet the dwarves and is reunited with his estranged daughter. They argue a little bit, and his daughter is pissed off because when she left, Azoun puts a word out, can someone bring her back? So bounty hunters went after her, and she was with her lover at the time, a priest, and he was killed by the bounty hunters, and she escaped, and now she hates her dad. So she's hanging with the dwarves, but the dwarves are going to be cool with everything that's happening with the crusade, but they don't get on ships. They don't want to get on a boat. So Azoun has to sail again, and the dwarves are going to march to where they are, which is going to take a little bit longer. The dwarves run into these centaurs. Now we're caught up. Okay, the dwarves run into these centaurs. The chieftain of the centaurs gives Princess Elisir a magical bracelet and a falcon, and the bracelet is a gift. She can attune herself to an animal, namely the falcon, and the falcon flies, and she can see through its eyes and all that kind of cool magic shit. And so they keep marching to the battle. Azoun and the armies get to the battle site. They set up a camp. They start making preparations. And Koja, the Ander of Yaman Kahan, the head of the Tweegan Horde, Ander is like friend or brother, comes into the camp and says, my leader, the Yaman Kahan, wants to meet with you. Azoun had sent emissaries already. One of them came back. The other one was killed because he refused to drink fermented horse milk or something. Typical fantasy stuff. That's, someone doesn't drink fermented horse milk, you behead them. Whatever. It's all good. So Azoun agrees to this. He takes Vengedahast with him, as well as 50 soldiers as guard. And they go to the camp, where Vengedahast immediately starts to feel sick and falls unconscious. The reason being, Yaman Kahan has set his camp up in a dead magic zone. And Vengedahast has had... He's 80 years old, but he uses like longevity potions and spells, so he doesn't feel his age. And they all just disappear. So he gets sick, but he's okay. And Yaman Kahan meets with King Azoun, and with him are Koja, Chinar, who we met in the first book, and Batu, who we met in the second book. Batu is very deferential to King Azoun. He knows who he is, and he understands hierarchy. Chinar is just being a dick, as per usual. And Koja is just being Koja, that we know from Horse Lords. Yaman Kahan demands that the army surrender because they are outnumbered 3-1. The meeting does not go well. It goes good, but it doesn't go well. And Azoun leaves with Vengedahast and the guards, and goes back and tells everyone, listen, we've got to prepare for battle. It's going to happen tomorrow. Vengedahast is still kind of sick. Tom stays with him. And the battle happens. It's a massacre on both sides. Azaun is wounded. He's shot in the leg. The dwarves, led by Torg, show up with Princess Alisair and manage to kind of rout one of the flanks of the Tweegan army. But Azaun and the Tweegan army end up kind of backing off, and Azaun is wounded and unconscious, so Princess Alisair has to take up the leadership position, something she doesn't want to do, but she does because it's kind of her duty. They move the camp, and they are trying to work out the best way because they are down a ton of men. And the Tweegan army, while the Tweegan army lost a hell of a lot as well, they are still outnumbered. So they pick a spot between these forests, and they decide on a trap. They dig holes in this field, so when the horses charge, because the Tweegans are the horse lords, when they charge, their horses are going to get crippled in the holes, and they can be more easily picked off with the arrows from the Dalesmen and the crossbows from the dwarves, and they can trap Yarman Kahan in this elaborate plot. So they dig these holes. The horsemen come. A small force of about 1,000 horsemen come, but they don't charge. What they do is they fire arrows, like flame arrows, into the forest on either side, which sets it on fire, which kind of causes smoke and everything to come into the battlefield. But the Vengedahast and his retinue of war wizards kind of put that out. The rest of the Tweegan end up charging. They realize, thanks to Princess Alisair's falcon, that she can see through with the bracelet. They realize that Yarman Kahan is in the center, so they devise this trap whereby Vengedahast creates this force bridge so he and his guards can ride over it, but the other horses all fall into the pits that they've laid out for the other trap. And then when they get rid of that, it cuts off Yarman Kahan from the rest of his army, and they easily surround him. Now, while this is kind of going on, Azaun sees Yarman Kahan, and Torg also sees Yarman Kahan. Now, Torg, being a dwarf, wants Yarman Kahan's head as a trophy for Earthhome. So he steps in front of Azaun to fight him and is brutally cut down. He's almost like split in half. And Azaun ends up fighting Yarman Kahan, defeating him in combat, which causes the rest of his army to flee, while about 700 of the Tweegan are taken prisoner. What doesn't happen in this second battle is cavalry. The reason that the cavalry is not in the second battle, apart from the traps that they laid, is because in the first battle, the cavalry saw the Tweegan moving back, retreating, and decided to chase after them. But it was a trap, and they all got wiped out. The reason they did that was because the army had been spreading rumors of Azaun fighting his way out of the Tweegan camp when he went to meet with Yarman Kahan, which wasn't true, but Azaun decided not to quash the rumors because they were boosting the morale of the army. Farl Bloodaxe told him this was a bad idea, but he went with it anyway. But that is why there's no cavalry on the Western Front with this second battle. With the Tweegan army fleeing and splitting up, because if you watched Horse Lords, you know that there used to be little fighting camps and then they came together under Yaman Khan. Azaun is now forced with the decision of what to do with these 700 prisoners, one of them being Koja, the priest. Batu is also captured. I believe he's captured in the first battle. But Batu, being Xiaolong, realizes that if he is a prisoner, there is no longer any point to his life, and he ends up killing himself by stabbing himself with his sword. It's a throwaway kind of page and a half, but it cuts a little deep because of what happened to his family in Dragonwall, and the reason why he actually joined the Tweegan Horde to begin with. So what does Azaun the Fourth do with these 700 Tweegan prisoners? His generals want him to kill them. This is war. If you let them go, they're going to rejoin the army. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they'll attack us again. So that's what Harcourt... No, Harcourt is dead. That is what Vrak says, the Orc general. And that is what Elventree, the Dalelands general, says. Farl says, let them live. And his daughter, Princess Alistair, says, this is your decision and you have to make it. And he lets them go. He heals them of their wounds, and over the coming weeks, he releases them and lets them go to join their respective tribes or whatever and head back to where they came from, although a lot of them are going to stay in Thesk. He does realize at this point, however, that the troops that the Zentarum sent him, the Orcs, are not going back to Zentel Keep. They were told, once the war is over, you stay in Thesk. You are now a Zentel outpost. So, to do good, King Azaun has had to do bad, which is... It was really fucking cool. It was a really cool scene. And Vrak, the Orc general, ended up being a fantastic character. And I can understand why in games like D&D now and Pathfinder, we can play as Orcs, because they are a completely misunderstood race of characters within that fantasy sphere of Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. It was just really, really cool. So ultimately, they win the war, go back. Koja ends up going back to Suzail with King Azaun and writing a treatise on the Tweegan, which is coupled with Tom's history of the Crusades. And King Azaun ends the novel hoping for a partnership with the rest of the quote-unquote good countries of Faerun. Whether that happens, go and read some second edition D&D. That's all I can say. This was Crusade by James Lowder, the third book in the Empire's trilogy. Absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that when I finished reading it, which I finished reading it yesterday, I was looking for a new book to read on Kindle, and I was scrolling through the 500 140 plus books I have there, thinking I've got to read something different. I've got to read an old horror novel or a thriller or just something different. I've just been reading these fantasy books over and over and over again. And I picked a fantasy book that I hadn't read, Faces of Deception, the second book in the Lost Empires trilogy, and another book by Troy Denning. So I'm just having an absolute blast reading these old D&D novels. It's just relaxing and fun, and it just makes me want to go back and read more of the stuff that I didn't read back in the day, but more importantly, more of the stuff I did read back in the day, because this is my year of nostalgia. So that's Crusade by James Lowder. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, of course, do all that good stuff. If you've got any, pardon me, if you've got any books that you would like me to read and review, by all means, leave them down in the comments and I will try and get to them. But most importantly of all, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Roll some dice. And of course, read a fucking book, people.